What's up, everybody? This is episode 9 of the Attunement Podcast. Let's fucking go. I just got back from a 2.5, well, not got back. I just finished a 2.5 day in-person emotional work retreat. And so I'm a little bit tired. I'm a little bit drained, but we're still out here. Today's experiment for the podcast is speaking from empowerment. And to get myself in that, I'm going to be like, all is well in my kingdom. There's nothing I need to do to be prepared. All is well in my kingdom. Boom. And Samek's intention he told me for that is taking more pauses, and that bringing him into his empowerment. And I think that's it. We're going to get into it, what we learned this week and where we are on our spiritual journeys.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm excited to ask you questions because it feels like I haven't talked to you in like a week. I've just been in the sauce at Earth Dance, and I want to hear about it. I want to learn about it. I want to hear. I remember like a quick conversation we had. You're like, I feel so lost. Like, who am I? Like, that's what you said. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm just like, I'm here in Earth Dance, and like this is happening and this is happening. So I'm curious how that's evolved. How have you taken up the space in Earth Dance?
Ooh. One, for the listeners, I'm at Earth Dance, which is a retreat center, which is a dance retreat center, which is specifically a contact improv. That is the form of dance, contact improv retreat center. But they also run other retreats. And I'm work exchanging here. So I'm volunteering 25 hours a week and gardening and cooking and helping clean the kitchen and helping chop wood for the sauna, and cleaning bathrooms. And in return, I get to attend most of their retreats for free, which is ridiculous. Insane. And hang out in their community and use their sauna and eat their food and stay here for free. Pretty crazy deal for me. I'm a big fan. I got here a week ago, and now to answer your question, well, and a little bit of context, being in an entirely new place and community, I was like, where am I? Who am I? How do I find a sense of belonging? What's the culture? How am I supposed to act? Am I breaking any rules? And the first night I was here, I went to a contact improv jam, and felt super anxious and self-conscious and rigid. And now to answer your question, Siri, no, not you. Not you. I need to turn that off. It almost feels like it's not me doing it. Like I am just expanding, and it's like, oh shit. I could say it's like, oh shit, I'm really big and I don't control that. Fuck. It also just feels unfamiliar. I was just talking with my friend and I was like, I just feel so different. Like, yeah, it is like, who even am I? Yeah.
I'm curious about like how the safety in this community
Ooh.
has allowed for this, how it has welcomed this expansiveness that you're allowing yourself to have, like just being in this spacious being.
The contact improv jam I went to, it was really hard, and I got to be in a sacred meditative space where I just got to like sit against the wall and watch people dance and feel insecure and self-conscious and anxious about not dancing, and like be with myself and have that like not be a problem for anyone or not be judged by anyone or like not have anyone try to save me. So like I just got to be with that. And in the same way, there's both like the safety plus people not trying to save me. And so it's like I get to just be with this. I just get to be with the self-consciousness and anxiety and unfamiliarness and expansiveness. And like no one tries to save me. No one tries to fix it. And so it's just like, whoa. And it's like not a problem for anyone. So just like I'm talking to someone or I'm like hugging someone, and it's like, and that's there too. In the same way, like if I was sad right now, like we wouldn't need to stop. It'd just be like, I happen to be sad. And so there's more and more like, oh, I just happen to be feeling this way. Siri, what did I say? I just happen to be feeling this way. And it's just part of the whole thing, more integrated. Yeah.
There was a really interesting conversation I had yesterday, which was around like, what's my experience of being myself? And
Ooh.
a friend of mine, what's his experience of being himself? The way that he described it and the way that I related to it was like, there's like all these parts and all these emotions and all these like things, and each of the emotions and parts have a story. It's like, oh, I'm feeling sad, blah, 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 blah. I'm scared, da, 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 da. And when I'm not acknowledging it and honoring it, I'm kind of like lost in the story. I'm just like looking for something. It's like, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for wholeness. I'm looking for approval. I'm looking. And the moment I like acknowledge and honor each of those parts, it's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling scared. Of course I feel scared.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I'm feeling a little bit of shame here. Of course I'm feeling like I want something this person has. Like this person's awesome. Of course. And then like not buying into the story, but like of coursing it and like acknowledging and honoring it. What happens is like all the parts that all these like weird like like kind of just like disappears, and it's like really this like self energy like just like comes back, and it's like, oh, I'm myself again. And then I don't remember when I'm lost in the story, but I am lost in the story sometimes. And then when I see that I'm lost, I can honor it. Like I have the capacity and ability now to like honor it. And then right when I do, I come back. And there's like a striking difference between those two states. And what I'm hearing is like this place has so much space and safety that being in self is just like a natural movement in the culture itself, which sounds fucking awesome. And that's my experience in a lot of retreat settings where it's like people are drawn, or people are in a place and community where you're allowed to fully be in yourself.
Yeah, that was banger. And when people are more in that self energy, they try to save and fix me less, and they like are less apt to proactively give me approval. They're like, oh, Harry's feeling anxious, let me like proactively give him approval so that he doesn't have to feel anxious. And it's like people don't do that. They just like be with me, or they just be themselves. And then I feel more of my own anxiety and self-consciousness, but I'm feeling more of it in a way that's like actually being with it or actually processing it, instead of like being owned by it or something. And I just want to rip the thing you just said, because that was awesome, which is like, I'm in an entirely new community with entirely new people and an entirely new culture, with like basically a new job as of 6 days ago. So like, of course I feel shame, and of course I feel self-conscious, and of course I feel anxious, and of course I feel like unfamiliar to myself and confused about my identity. And like, of course I feel like weirdly expansive in a not entirely integrated way. And of course I'm like unsure about how I want to or should interact with people and the culture and the community, and what it means to me and how I want to integrate it and what parts I like and don't like. Boom.
Yeah. No, I feel like you're more in self as you're of coursing it. Yeah. It's an interesting thing when you share that, because it's like when I'm with someone who has access to a lot of self, I feel so much safer in just like letting it rip, like complaining or like, you know, like letting my emotions be my emotions, because I know they're not buying into it.
Yeah.
And if when they're not buying into it, it gets reflected back to me. So then it creates distance where like I'm saying the story and I'm like, whoa, this person is fully here with me and they don't give a fuck. They don't believe it at all.
Yeah.
And it's like
Oh.
you know, when I'm with you or like you're with me and like I'm saying something and I start feeling self-conscious and I'm starting to hear my own words, and I was like, oh, I'm just saying this to gain someone's approval, or I'm saying you're trying to guess something with the other person. Then you can like see it clearly, or like this story is also bullshit, because they're reflecting back to you that part of them are like, oh, I love you, I'm here, and I will listen to your story, and I know it's bullshit, so I'm just gonna be. And that allows me to do the same thing. And then being with the bullshit story lets me feel the feelings underneath and process it and be in myself more. And I get expansive being around people who are expansive.
It reminds me of like so many of Joe Hudson's banger questions when he's rapid fire coaching that are like him saying with no judgment, right? It's like someone seeking Joe Hudson's approval and with like no judgment and even like with enjoyment. He's just like, oh, like what's making you seek my approval right now? And they're like, gah! And I'm like, oh my God, he just stabbed them in the heart. But really, he's just like, why are you stabbing yourself in the heart right now?
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck. But also what that points to for me is like, it's just such a relief when people don't buy into a story that I'm buying into. It is such a relief. Because it's like, oh, like we can have deeper intimacy, or like, oh my God, you actually see me, or like, oh my God, I actually see myself now, or oh my God, I can see more clearly that I'm doing a thing. Like this isn't how it is. This is like me doing a thing to myself that I like have some agency over, or like can understand more clearly now. But there's just so much relief when people don't buy into my stories.
Yeah. Anything else?
I said and Siri went off. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Two things. No, just one thing. So we're gonna skip that one. During the retreat, there was a question that was something like, what's your main limiting belief right now? And the one I chose was I'm confused. Which I think is such a funny limiting belief. Like I'm confused, I think, at least for me, is such an easy story to buy into. Like that's almost the easiest victim narrative. Like it's a pretty small victim narrative, but it's like almost the easiest victim narrative for me to buy into. Because it's like, oh, I'm just confused. Like I can't control being confused. But then if it's like, oh, like what's making you choose to be confused right now? And it's like, oh, I'm scared of like how expansive I am and like how much I feel like I know and how much clarity I have and how much I want to do. And the boundaries I want to set and how like actually don't want to have this kind of conversation, and actually like I want to ask this question that's like kind of intense and scary, and like actually I want to ask this person to dance, and like actually I want to ask this person to hang out. And so like the confusion, buying into the story that I'm confused, allows me to like be like, oh, I don't know what I want. And then when I give that up, then it's like, oh shit, I know what I want and I'm scared. So yeah.
Cool.
Boom. Okay. Let's see what I want to ask you. What's up?
What's up? I feel very empowered. Maybe that's just the experiment we're running, but I want to share my experience in nature yesterday. So I've been hiking like most of my life. Like my dad always dragged me out, but I've not been embodied most of my life. So it was like, this is the first hike I've done in like a year. It was like, because I hurt my knee like 2 years ago and I stopped hiking. And I've done a shit ton of emotional work in that time. And it has an effect. Like you can feel what the nature is doing to you. I can feel what nature does to me. And the way that I like to explain it is like when I do a lot of this emotional work stuff, I get burnt. My nervous system gets burnt. I get dysregulated, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was hiking yesterday and I was with a friend who had an insane amount of capacity. So we were doing like shadow work. We were doing like, he was letting me rip on like basically like ripping him to shreds. It was like everything that I thought was like bad about him or everything I thought would hurt him. I was like, I just want to let it rip. And he's like, let's go. So I just like let it rip for 10 minutes where I'm just like trying to kill him with every little thing that I see that he does that is not healthy or good or like he's doing to like try to gain approval, doing this, like all his patterns. I just fucking like let it rip. And then he's just like, we created a safe word and he was holding a rock to like feel grounded. And usually when this happens, like I'm hit with so much shame afterwards that I collapse. Like the day is fucked. I'm gone. I let it rip. And at the end, he's like, wow, that was fucking beautiful. And then I was like, thank you. And I was like feeling the shame, feeling the shit. And like 5 minutes later, as we're continuing to hike, I feel completely regulated. Completely regulated. I was like, oh, of course, I'm fine. Nature is here loving me. There's trees and greenery and the beautiful smell. And my friend is still hiking with me. I was so good that I was like, what the fuck? And then we got to the end of the hike and there's like this beautiful fucking mountain. It was like it was like it encompassed my like entire vision. It was like really up close. It was like beautiful mountain. And I was like, looking away and I look at it and I was just hit with the awe, like just pure awe. And it was like I think like you described it, like, like the feeling of like, this is my kingdom and everything's okay. That feeling, I've never experienced it that like I've done that visualization, like that visualizing, like being in like this mountain range and seeing a vast vista. That is my kingdom that I get to own and nothing can go wrong because I can handle it all. I've like imagined that, but just being there and like experiencing it in person, where like I look, there's this mountain and it's loving me and it's like fucking beautiful, just like empowered, like it does not give a fuck about any of my stories or my bullshit. It's just there and it's beauty. And I look away and I'm like, okay. I look back and it's there again. I look away and I did this a couple of times and I just stared at it for 5 minutes. I was like, holy shit. Like nature is inherently regulating. It just regulates your system so well, especially like something that awe-striking. That like I was like throwing up and crying because I was like, okay, I'm gonna process this shit. And I look at the mountain and then I get regulated in like minutes. I was like, this is fucking magic. And another thing that came up for me was like, oh, I couldn't tell nature was regulating when I was so in my head and not embodied. And I couldn't allow it in. It was like my attachment system was so fucked that like nature is loving me. I couldn't let the love in. And that's like something I was like seeing, I was thinking about. It was like, oh, when your attachment system is fucked, you just don't let love in. Like if you're either anxious or fearful or avoidant. So going out in nature and like seeing a vast vista and not being hit with awe when there is awe there, like you're human, like this is like awe-striking beauty of nature, means you're just like not allowing it. It is like I wasn't allowing it and I wasn't allowing myself to be regulated by it. Me, like there was an aspect of like, oh wow, I was just like it was like grief there. I was like, oh, I just wasn't letting myself be loved by this thing that's always loving me. And then I cried a little bit as I stared at this mountain and felt held by the mountain. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. That's fucking crazy. It was also very empowering. So like, I was like, I want to be mountain. So when I left the hike, my parents invited me to a party. And I went to the party And I was like, I'm just going to be mountain at the party. So I went and I like walked and I did exactly what I wanted to do. I stepped in the way, I talked in the way I wanted to do. And I was just moving through this party like a mountain. And it fucking like attracted like people and like my friends my age. And then I like talked, I was like, oh, I went to a Zen retreat 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, I could feel it. And I was like, oh, that wasn't the Zen retreat. That was like I went on. And it was really funny to like for them to say like, oh, I could feel it. You feel so different. You feel so big. Like these people don't meditate at all. It was like a really interesting experience of like having a visceral reaction or reflection from like just like people I've known all my life based on the experience of being more empowered and embodied in myself.
Boom. I also noticed it. I'm gonna go on a rant a little bit. Am I? Yeah, I am. Ooh. Two things. One, in Alexander technique, they talk about expanded awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Expanded awareness. Like, what if I let my consciousness fill up like, I don't know, 500 feet in every direction?
Yeah.
And when you're in a city and you try to do expanded awareness, or when you're in like a small New York City apartment, you're like, you're like expanding your awareness into like the fucking subway and like 700 people in the subway, and you're like, oh my God. But when you're like in nature on a hike and you expand your awareness, you're like, damn, these trees and these birds and this mountain and these flowers and the sky and the soil and the weeds. And it's just like, it's so much easier to expand your awareness in that environment. So that's one thing that comes up for me that I like about nature. And two, right before the podcast started, me and Samek were talking about Rob Burbea's soul making Dharma. Highly recommend looking into it. Talking about dependent arising plus emptiness. But really we're talking about, I don't know how to say that in normal terms. So
it's a projection or fabrication.
Yeah. But what I'm going to say is like, we're humans, we're animals. We're humans, we're animals. And so the way we see a mountain is I'm just like combating my inner anti-woo. And anyone listening who might have this part, I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. It's not that mountains are inherently healing. It's that, bro, humans evolved in nature. Are you fucking kidding me? Of course we find nature regulating. Like, that's our natural environment. Like, and of course, like there's a reason, and there are many, many reasons that we find natural beauty beautiful. It's not like things are not objectively beautiful. Like, we find things beautiful. We find things regulating. And so I'm kind of just enjoying that, and like related to Rob Burbea's soul making Dharma, like the mountain almost as like an imaginal being, or as like a spirit, or as like a god that is still also empty. But like,
could you expand on the still also empty?
For you or for the listeners?
For the listeners.
For the listeners, yes. Rob Burbea, I was listening to his talk, absolute banger. He goes, even God is also empty. He also goes, literally all perception, any sensation is empty. There is no perception that is not empty. If you don't know emptiness, it basically means, I would say it means there's no inherent, solid, ultimate content to anything. Nothing exists absolutely in isolation inherently. Things only exist in relationship to each other.
I want to add, this is talking about consciousness and conscious experiences, because everything you experience is experienced in consciousness. So everything happening within the field of consciousness is empty, is a reification, is a fabrication that is being created to be experienced. Continue.
And then It was like, yeah. So even God, because for me, Robert Burbea soul making Dharma allows me to interact with the divine and spirits and gods in a way that feels intellectually sound and honestly, I would say safe to me, because we were also just talking about this. I like the community I'm in a lot, and I think it suffers from a thing that basically almost everyone in spirituality suffers from, um, which is reifying. I'd say this is part of New Age, which is reifying, especially spirits. I would say reifying spirits as having an inherent and absolute essence. The way I would say most religious Americans relate to God is that God is like an ultimate, inherently existing independently entity. Like God actually fucking exists. But I'm like, everything's empty. Literally nothing actually independently exists, even God. And of course, like of course I have a relationship. Of course I have a relationship to God. Um, yeah, and everything's empty. And of course I have a relationship to God. And having both of those like opens up both of them for me more, but especially the divine part. And yeah, just like so I was enjoying seeing the mountain as like a divine or imaginal being.
Yeah.
And I'm just one more explanation thing because I like it. There's a great example of mathematics and soul making Dharma. Robert Burbea talks about imaginal beings or divine beings as created and discovered. Like you could say, like God has archetypes, but God is also created through your relationship to God. Um, and I like the relationship there between mathematics, which is once we're in the frame of three-dimensional space-time, or once we're in the realm of three-dimensional space as we experience it, math is just true in that context. But there are like other possible space-times, and many people say that space is actually just a thing that basically we create through our experience. And from some physics stuff that space can like shrink and shit, and like apparently wormholes are real. I don't fucking know. But like when
Now
we
this is
have
really cool, man.
when we have three-dimensional space-time, math is just true.
Yeah.
Um, but even three-dimensional space is a certain context that is not absolutely ultimately true. Three-dimensional space itself is also empty. There is no inherent absolute quality to three-dimensional space. I wouldn't say I've directly experienced that, but I would absolutely bet on that being true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is all phenomenology. It is all experience and consciousness. So, like, I can see it. Like intellectually, it's grounded for me, especially
Yeah.
with Robert Burbea stuff. It's oof.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe even more true, I'd say it makes more sense than any alternative I know of. Yeah.
I want to add to the mountain thing because I was like, this when I was there, I was like, this feels like God. It was like the experience. It's
Yeah.
like I could, if I come here unprepared and try to stay the night, I'll die. Like, this doesn't give a fuck about me. Just fucking nature, just like beauty and love, and it's like whoosh. But at the same time, it's just like, yeah, it's like if you're gonna make bullshit, you're gonna deal with the consequences. Like I'm here. It is like this is awe, this is beauty, this is love, and it's not gonna take care of me. I'm taking care of myself. I am empowered. This thing sees me as also a mountain. Like the mountain is looking at me as a mountain because it can't see anything else. And I'm just like, fuck, this is so fucking powerful. And me and that friend was talking about inner wealth. So he's done a shit ton of inner work, and he moves around the world in a way that like affects people. Like me, him, two other people were hanging out, and like the two other people we're hanging out with were like, I saw this dude and I freaked out. Like my body freaked out for 2 days because it like freaked me out how he was navigating the world. Like there's like this power that is there when you move at your own pace that like has an effect on people because they project shit onto the emptiness that is a person without like that is not looking for approval. That is being a mountain.
Yeah.
If a person is walking around like a mountain, everyone is gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?" Because they're like, it's like, oh, it's either this person is a person or all the shit that they're not owning is gonna be projected onto that mountain. It's like if you're not owning your power, it's gonna be projected onto the empty mountain dude who's like walking around in his own fucking way with his own fucking power and empowerment because he's empty of like all the perception and approval seeking and all that. And how it relates back to inner wealth was he was talking about like someone named Mark Alexander, who is one of the coaches in Art of Accomplishment, who's done like, I think he's been co-facilitating and even helping run Groundbreakers, which is their retreat, since it started. So he's also fucking like done a shit ton of inner work, right? And he was describing like going to Groundbreakers and seeing this person in their natural habitat of holding space for Groundbreakers. And he was like, it felt like I was seeing a lion that was just hanging out with all of us. It was like massive lion that just like hanging out who like, he's like he doesn't even care that he's a lion. He's just a lion. He's like, of course I'm a lion. And like he's holding space where like this friend is like freaking the fuck out, like, completely freaking the fuck out. And then Mark is just there, like, yeah, you're okay, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
Of course you're. It's just like a lion. It's just like this massive fucking being, and he's probably not that tall. I don't know how tall Mark is, but just like holding that power and authority and space, okayness of a mountain, and allowing that to be reflected back to a person. Like, but just like the mountain reflected back to me that I'm a mountain, he, like Mark being a lion, a mountainous figure, reflects back to the people that they're fucking okay and they're also mountains, allowing them to heal and hold capacity and like go through the shit. And there's like this inner wealth that comes as you go deeper and deeper into inner work, where like you become this empty thing, this fucking mountain, this fucking lion. And in being that thing, you can reflect that back to people in their shit. And the larger your capacity, to be with someone's like deepest shit without buying in to their shit and being able to hold space for them to process their shit. So I'm thinking about like coaches or like amazing therapists, like they just have mountain energy is like what I'm going to say, allowing you to process your shit.
I love the way that especially Mark, but also pretty much all the Art of Accomplishment facilitators, but especially Mark. I mean, the mountain hanging out is such a good, the lion hanging out is such a good way to say it. It's like, I love that so much. And the way that even if you're freaking out, I mean, when I did the masterclass, the first couple weeks, I was going crazy in the written form. And I was freaking out. I was like, I'm so depressed. I hate myself. I'm a piece of shit. Like I'm freaking out. And literally, Mark Alexander just replied fire emoji.
I love that.
And it's just like this, like, I'm not going to buy into the story that you're not okay, even if you actually think you're not okay. And I found that super helpful. And I love that they facilitate that way. And I'm also going to hop on another thing, which is something I've been thinking about and feeling, which you could say is like how we're all connected. But the image I love is like, I love this image, is like a whirlpool. So this like Theseus's ship thing. It's like you replace one part of the ship and eventually it's an entirely different ship, but it's also the same ship. And so you have a whirlpool in a river, and like the whirlpool always stays in the same spot because of how the river is formed. But obviously all the water in that whirlpool goes in and out. Obviously, like the next day, it's entirely different water, or even like the next 20 seconds, it's entirely different water. but you walk out of your house and it's like in the same spot and you're like, yeah, I know that whirlpool. And just like the same thing as that for us, which is, like how many times has my entire skin replaced itself? How many times has my entire heart replaced itself? I don't know. Maybe it's 0, maybe it's 100. I literally don't know.
I know like every cell in your body is replaced every 7 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but just that, and it's like obvious. It's just the Theseus ship thing. It's like obviously every piece has been replaced, and obviously I can still recognize it as Harry. Obviously anyone else can. Yeah, and so that plus in human community and human social relationships, it's not just like food and cells are being replaced, but it's also like if we are both in the river and like we're 2 whirlpools near each other, like obviously some of the water is like going through both of us. Like obviously, right? Like easy, like some of the ideas are moving through us. Some of the same people are relating to us, not you, Siri. Some of the same people are relating to us. But I really like the fluid nature between people and between community, right? Like kind of seen through individualism. I'm just really enjoying that frame and enjoying like that frame as seeing how other people have impact on me, and the ways in which I'm not just an individual. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would imagine if I hung out with like Mark Alexander for a week, that would fucking destroy me and rebuild me into a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like exchange. I'm gonna say of energy, but I almost want to say like an exchange of the energies that you guys are putting out. Like if he's putting out mountain, like obviously you're gonna receive mountain. And if you're putting out whatever lion, obviously he's gonna receive lion. Like obviously those are gonna whirlpool together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of like collective consciousness, group consciousness. It's like, what is consciousness? Like, who are you? It's like you're everything that is arising in conscious, like in a broad definition, everything that's arising in consciousness. So then there's a field between me and Harry right now, because I'm talking to Harry. Everything in my conscious field is me. So this field that we're creating as we're intermingling and interrelating is also me. So then there's like his ideas are impacting my conscious experience, and my ideas are impacting his conscious experience. So the conscious field we're in has both of our conditionings that's combining into the field that we're creating in this podcast, this container.
And for you, so I find that idea interesting to like almost model it. If like I'm an entity and you're an entity, to almost model it as a third entity. But then like also everything's obviously empty. So in some sense there's 0 entities.
Yeah.
It's all just flow. But like I'm curious, like, do you kind of model it as a third entity, or do you have a experience or relationship with it as a third entity? Or are you more just talking about the flow between us?
It feels like a third entity, yes.
Okay,
so
cool.
I made this tweet, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, where it was like, you can feel it, like you can feel the vibes off of people, and it affects you, and then you create like there's a relationship in the interaction. There's like this thing, and it's not only with people like dyads, it's also in groups. So like when I was at the Zendo, the moment I sat down to meditate, I could feel a field of empty, like this Zendo is a vessel to empty myself. It's like the feeling I got, and like it felt like a blanket on my skin. Like, and this field was being created by the environment, the sacred space, the people that was holding the space, and like the avid, and I could like feel it. And then it's also, I was like I think I told you about this. I was at a nonviolent communication workshop with Kathleen McFlurn, and that was her name. And she's done like 20 years of just going to prisons to talk to prisoners. And she's such a saint. She's such a saint that like these rapists and murderers would bet. I was like, I bet you can't stay angry at Kathleen for more than 5 minutes. Like that, those are like the type of bets they were taking. And then I was like, nah, I fucking got it. And then they would go to talk to Kathleen, and they're like, I couldn't do it. That's how much she's like embodied.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I went to this nonviolent communication workshop, and like I entered the room. So this was at a Zendo as well. This is like a Renzai Zen Zendo. Like she was invited to give a workshop, and I was like all these amazing meditators, and she's there, and she's like fucking like this entire space just feels like love. It's like everyone's being like hugged and loved. Like it was like the whole space like walked in, it was like this like bubble of love. I was like, wait, what the fuck? I feel like I just entered a different reality. Like the feel is so strong that I felt like I entered a different reality. Same with like the Zendo. So it's like people have the capacity to create and hold this like third space, this like thing. And it's a beautiful experience to be in that and have a relationship with it. Because you're also your own person.
That last sentence I think made me understand it, which is like, what? Okay, so, and let me know if it's something different for you. My understanding of what you're saying is there's my relationship to me, there's my relationship to you, but then there's also my relationship to this conversation.
Yes.
There's my relationship to this culture that is between me and you right now. And I am like, I can feel that and I can receive that. I could resist it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
There's like I think you said this.
It's kind of like the water we're swimming in.
It is the water we're swimming in.
Yeah.
It was the conversation we had in the connection course. It's like the operating system of the human brain is like relationships. So like we relate to fields and groups and like cultures as a relationship. Like all of it is a relationship that we're having.
Ooh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking that helps me see it so much more clearly. My relationship to the cultural and social field. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. There's saints out there, man. Like fucking magical
saints. And they're very good at
creating great
embodying and like sending out a cultural social field that has a ton of love or whatever in it. And so then people, it's very easy to relate to that field, like, I guess also lovingly, or like that field has a very big impact on people. Cool. Interesting.
Yeah. I feel good with that. I want to ask you a question.
Let me just say one last thing on that. Like,
go for it.
I went to this Contact Improv Jam on Monday, and he said something which, like, sounds kind of true, sounds kind of woo, but he's like, even if you literally just are witnessing the whole time, you're like also participating in the jam. Like you are always participating, even if you're just sitting watching. And it's like, that sounds nice. I kind of believe you, I kind of don't. But when you say it like that, then I'm like, oh yeah, like the witness, the fact that someone is witnessing, I mean, right? Like right now, us recording this, the fact that we are expecting to be witnessed and like recording this for a purpose is also influencing the field, right? Like this conversation is different in many ways than our normal conversations. That is absolutely influencing, we'll say, the field, the sociocultural context between us. And so like, oh, of course, there's no way for me to not influence the field of the Contact Improv Jam, especially once I'm in the space. And like a much lighter sense, even if I'm not in the space, like the moon's gravitational pull is affecting me right now, and my gravitational pull is affecting the moon right now. But in a much less subtle sense, if I'm in the room, I'm affecting the sociocultural field. There's no fucking way I'm not. I'm affecting that environment.
I love the word gravity so much. It does feel like a gravitas, like a gravity. When I came back from retreat, I think I told you this as well. I was like, it felt like I had so much gravity. It felt like I had power and gravity, and like things were falling into me. Like people were like falling into me, and I got really scared because I was like, I can't hold this much power. I got terrified. And I started freaking the fuck out for a week after the retreat. Because it's like you have, like, once you're able to hold a field, once you're able to be a mountain, you have gravitas, you have gravity, and people fall into it. They get influenced by your culture. If you're able to hold it down, if you're able to be grounded in your own culture that you know is like your truth, people like actually like fall into it, because most people don't have a fucking culture, like an internal culture that they believe is true for them. Like they don't follow their truth. Most people don't follow their truth. So whenever there's someone who follows their truth, people fall into it, which is why I'm assuming my friend freaked out when one of my friends freaked out when we're hanging out, that one mountain friend, I'll call him, because he was falling into the other person's culture, and he was getting freaked out because that culture is like so different from his everyday culture.
Yeah.
One person walking around.
Yeah, what single person culture shock.
Yeah, single person culture shock. Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Like that way of being is so different. I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm ready to switch when you are.
Yeah. Oh man. I want to go back to like the raw Burbea stuff, and also like all this, the thing with language and culture, like that feels really alive for me. And like for you, like being in this space with its own language and culture, and like how, it's like, what's the question? How have the people affected you is one question. Another question is like, how has it changed your dreams? How has it changed your inner culture? That's another question.
First, I'm getting tired. Can we make this the last instance and just the last question? Just feel free to hop in back and forth.
Yes, we can do that.
Sweet.
But
I think I missed the second part, but I'm going to answer the first part, and feel free to ask follow-ups. One is like the mountain lion thing. Like people here are quite in the lion hanging out way, are comfortable being in each other's presence and like not interacting, like being in that mountain way, just like doing what they want. So that's a big one. It's just like, and that brings up my like self-consciousness and like, oh, I should talk to this person, even though they clearly don't care, and like being able to see through that. And something that I'm unclear on, which maybe like the thing that feels negative to me or not integrated at least, is like there's something in this culture that feels like vague. It feels vague and it feels airy and it feels not clear and it feels like lackadaisical, and it feels almost dreamy. And so I feel like that just gives me a feeling here of like it's kind of, it's part of the who am I thing, but it's also like, does time exist? And it's also not you, Siri. It's also like, what do I want to do? Yeah, and that thing's fucking with me. And there's something nice about that, which is like the thing I call mammals in abundance, which is also like, you could say it's the mountain hanging out thing, but I more think of like, I don't know, like dogs at the dog park, or like a bunch of apes just like hanging out and massaging each other. There's like a timelessness to that, and there's like a rest in and like play to that. But there's something, so that's the positive aspect of that. The negative aspect of it is kind of like pretending I don't have wants, or like pretending I don't have clarity, pretending I don't already want to move. There's like for me, it makes me feel a little stagnant, or a little bit like I shouldn't move when I want to. Yeah.
Cool. And then the second question follow-up was like, how has this culture changed your perception of your dreams and like what you want? So going back to the want thing. Or how has it changed your relationships to your wants?
I think it's a little hard to see, but I think it's like, I do think there's some things in this community that are just so good that like it will feel extremely painful or unacceptable for me to not have in the future, like having attuned touch, and just like hugging people all the time and like dancing and singing and maybe even being in nature and maybe even having better food and like cooking with people and just like hanging out with people. All those things and some undercurrent beneath them. It's like things that are just so good and so easy and so natural here that I could definitely imagine like leaving here and being like, no, I actually just like need those things now because they're so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. As you're sharing that, I was like, oh, how can I create that here? It's like just create a hiking group every week with like people I like, people I not like, but like people I view as like a culture I want to create.
Yeah. And you know, like you were saying, saints are real. And because and another answer to your question is like, because I'm thinking about this, I'm like, this is so sick. How do I create my version of this? And it's like, how do I create my version of this? And it's like, what's the next step? And it's like, how do I start in this moment with myself? And it's like, oh, how do I embody the culture I want to embody in this moment? And it's like, oh, how do I show up how I want to show up right now? And and that's beautifully connected to the field thing, which is like, how do I create the field around me in this moment? How do I embody the sociocultural, the social culture that I want to embody? But it's really just how do I want to show up right now? Because that will naturally create that field, and that will naturally, yeah. How do I want to show up? But and with the Robert Ray stuff, another question I'm liking, maybe under that, but maybe more like dancing with that, is how do I want to show up? But then there's also how do I want to look? You know, seeing that freezes his book. What's the perspective from which I want to look? What's the perspective that's the most soulful? But what's the perspective? How can I relate to reality? How can I look at reality that makes showing up the way I want to show up more natural? And what's the way I want to show up that makes seeing the world with such beauty the way I want to see it more natural? And like those dancing.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the question at the end of the day is like, how can I create the culture in myself that I want in the world? And then moving in the world in that way such that it just happens. It's like, of course, this is my culture. Of course, this is reality's culture. And then people just fall into it because most people don't have their culture or have a culture at all.
and you adding on to that, you say fall in, but you know, there's gravity, but there's also whatever repelling forces there are, you know, boundaries in general. There's also whatever repelling force. And right, there's like, people could fall into it. And maybe this is what people are experiencing when they see your friend and they freak out. It's like they start to fall into it and then they meet the boundary. And it's like, wait, you love me this much and you're not going to save me? Now I'm feeling everything and no one's going to save me. I'm fucking freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, that's an actual healthy distance to invite people into a culture instead of, you know, starting a cult where everyone is where you're trying to get everyone at the exact same point. And then everyone's thrashing around and hitting each other in the face blindly because they're too close together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my God. That gives so much to me in terms of like inner wealth, right? Like inner wealth. Like this is the path to inner wealth.
Bang.
Bang. I feel complete. How are you feeling? You got one more? Got a nugget?
Give me more on inner wealth. Okay, I see inner wealth. Do you see that? All right, that works.
Well, I'm gonna expand on inner wealth because I'm just like there's like outer wealth, like material things and the physical things that are happening in the reality that you're gaining money, you're blah 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 blah. But in my opinion, inner wealth is like this empty vase of like the emptying out of all the things internally that you don't want and filling it with things like soul making, the reality you want in the moment. And there is a wealth to that of like, I get to experience heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And that is inner wealth.
Now, and I have some resistance to wealth, to the word wealth, but now I'm able to see it, which is like, in my mind, it's inner value, and it's just exactly the same thing of like, but especially for me right now, it's the way of looking, which is like, there's a certain way of looking that just like, oh my God, this lamp loves me so much. Like,
Yeah, yes, dude. When I looked
and
at
it's
that
just like,
mountain, God, bro, this
yeah.
mountain is it's reflecting God back in me. I'm like, whoa.
And it's like there's and it's hard, value is hard because it's hard to have value, see value plus emptiness. But when we see value plus emptiness, like, oh, of course seeing this lamp in this way is so valuable to me. I feel like love and beauty and like joy and like pleasure in my body. Like, of course that's valuable to me. And it's also empty. And so then inner value, then inner wealth. And I'm like, inner wealth, that term still triggers me a little bit, but that does seem true. And I do feel that.
Yeah. Bang. Inner wealth, man. We're
Bang.
fucking rich right now. So rich as our bank accounts are being emptied. So rich. I love it.
Well said. All right. Take us out, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Attunement Podcast. We'll continue doing this for as long as we enjoy it.
That's our promise to you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be well.